I was never worried about SWR or standing wave ratio during my first stint in amateur radio in late 1980s. That was due to three reasons. 1. I did not know much about SWR. 2. I did not have an SWR meter, though I did homebrew an SWR bridge later on and tested SWR using an analog multimeter. 3. Most of my ham radio operations were with a homebrew vacuum tube radio, and vacuum tube radios are known to tolerate higher SWR than solid state radios. As a disclaimer, I did lose quite a few BD139 final transistors of my VU to VW and QRP radio, which was my first ever ham radio. Retrospectively, it could have been due to elevated SWR. Moreover, I was using 75 ohms television cable as feeder, as that was the only one available locally, and I did not even know that there is 50 ohms cable for ham radio. I had never tuned my inverted V dipole antenna or horizontal dipole, most often in V configuration due to the weight of the unsupported feed line. Still, I had reasonable success with local contacts on QRP on CW AM, while some of my friends could work plenty of DX with it. I could work a lot of DX, including the most difficult WLAN in those days, on CW with my 3x807 vacuum tube QRO running about 120 watts and dipole antenna. In late 1990s, when I purchased a commercial TM261 VHF base station and a handy, I became more concerned about feed line, though still lacking an SWR meter for VHF. I moved on to RG213 cable and ground plane antenna, tuned and given by my local ham friend. Still later, I had used 7-element Yagi with gamma match, again tuned and provided by another local ham friend. Then came a period of inactivity to return back to ham radio in March 2023 with a renewed license and a lot of interest and some more free time. Moreover, I had become familiar with how to get information from Google, Twitter and WhatsApp with plenty of inputs from the ham radio fraternity worldwide. Though the old TM261 is still working on low power, I have acquired a new IC2730 dual band radio. Now I have become really concerned about SWR, as I do not want my new radio to pack off due to high SWR. I had also purchased an SWR meter which could measure SWR from HF right up to 525 MHz. So I started measuring SWR for each and every configuration. My CP22E commercial VHF antenna had a low SWR of about 1.1:1 on VHF. Then some of my friends told me that it will also work on UHF as third harmonic, just as the 7 MHz dipole also works on 21 MHz. My CP22E has an SWR of nearly 1.8:1 on UHF on sunny days. SWR on both VHF and UHF rises when it is raining heavily, making me more concerned. Still, I do use it mostly for VHF transmission and UHF reception for VU/FM satellite operations with fair results. UHF transmission for UV satellites has been successful only on very few occasions as expected. Though the old TM261 is still working on low power, I have acquired a new IC2730 dual band radio. Now I have become really concerned about SWR, as I do not want my new radio to pack off due to high SWR. I had also purchased an SWR meter which could measure SWR from HF right up to 525 MHz. So I started measuring SWR for each and every configuration. My CP22E commercial VHF antenna had a low SWR of about 1.1:1 on VHF. Then some of my friends told me that it will also work on UHF as third harmonic, just as the 7 MHz dipole also works on 21 MHz. My CP22E has an SWR of nearly 1.8:1 on UHF on sunny days. SWR on both VHF and UHF rises when it is raining heavily, making me more concerned. Still, I do use it mostly for VHF transmission and UHF reception for VU/FM satellite operations with fair results. UHF transmission for UV satellites has been successful only on very few occasions as expected. It was with this background information that I read with great interest an article by KN0JI titled "An Excessively Low SWR Can Kill You." He has mentioned that our undue concern for SWR could lead us to repeated climbing on rooftops, which could be really dangerous, especially in adverse weather conditions. In fact, my second stint, he goes on to mention our two important concerns in case of SWR. One, we do not want to burn out the final power transistor of our radio because of high SWR. In fact, I have lost quite a few of them for my old homebrew QRP. 2. We want all the power from our radio to go out of the antenna and not get reflected back due to high SWR. He mentions that the first point is not much valid for a 21st century commercial radio which has a feedback mechanism to reduce power output or shut off the radio in case of high SWR. I think I have experienced this a few times in my IC2730. Sometimes unlock appears on the screen and there is no power output when SWR is elevated. This does not appear when I try again on low power with the same antenna. Many modern HF radios have internal automatic antenna tuners which can take care of SWR up to 3:1. Regarding the second point of the power reflected back the antenna because of mismatched impedance, KN0JY informs us that this power is not really lost. It will get re-reflected back to the antenna when it reaches the radio. The process is repeated until the power is either transmitted or consumed by the coax. He mentions that, but I am not sure whether multiple reflections across the coax will impair the quality of the signal, as I would expect mixing up of reflected signal and the new signal coming from the radio, just as if you are listening to music in a room with too much of echo. Anyway, it is comforting to note that protective mechanisms built into modern radios would prevent damage at SWR up to 2:1 without any significant cut down of power. Even higher SWR may be tolerated in HF radios with an internal antenna tuner. I have seen a video online in which it was shown that the initial higher SWR drops quickly when the internal antenna tuner functions in commercial radio with automatic antenna tuner. So maybe we can save ourselves from multiple climbs to the rooftop. After all, you are more important than the radio. Link to KN0JI's article is available in the description box of the video.